the funding will come, the partners will come who'll want to be part of it. And I think I just knew back then, even though we were nowhere near able to do it, that it was the right, as you said, it was the right project for us, and it was the right way to do it. I've been wanting to open a theater in Washington Heights, like uptown, for since I moved to the neighborhood 20 years ago. Like, there isn't one. Why not? We're such creative, amazing, we're such a creative, vibrant community. We have so many stories to tell, right? When PTP started, we went out to the streets, spoke to over 100 people. When was the last time you saw a play? We asked them 2 questions. When was the last time you saw a play? Would you like to be in a play? Tell your story with People's Theater Project. For the first one, over 95% of people said, bueno, like the nativity play at church or never. For the second one, 98% of people said, claro, tell me when, I'll be there. We're like...
Welcome to Career Cheat Code. In this podcast, you'll hear how everyday people impact the world through their careers. Learn about their journey, career hacks, and obstacles along the way. Whether you're already having the impact you want or are searching for it, this is the podcast for you. All right, Mino, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Super happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I know you are someone that has an illustrious career, and I just want to dive right in and tell the world what it is you do for a living.
Thank you. I am the Executive Artistic Director of People's Theater Project. People's Theater Project, PTP, is a theater and social justice organization. We create theater with and for the immigrant community of New York City. We are based uptown in Washington Heights. And what I do in my work is a lot of things as Executive Artistic Director, right? With my Artistic Director title, I oversee all of our productions. At PTP, we do professional productions with immigrant artists. We do ensemble-based work. I work with our creative producer. We hire a lot of artists and work with them to help cultivate new works of theater that tell our stories as Latinos, as immigrants. We also do community productions with everyday New Yorkers, and that's always a joy to do that. And then we cultivate new work with emerging playwrights as well with our playwrights unit. So I oversee all of that. I look at our partners, I find partners, co-producers, and we built that, and that's super exciting. And sometimes I get to direct plays as well, which is great because that was my original training. And then we do a lot of work with immigrants. When we say immigrants, we also, really put emphasis on our young people. So we have a robust education program, and I work closely with our education team as we build curriculum, as we create new programs, as we do our programs, our Academy for Theater, Leadership, and Activism, as well as our partnership with schools and community centers across Uptown, the Bronx, and New York City. And then finally, advocacy. We do a lot of advocacy for immigrant rights at People's Theater Project, and I lead a lot of that effort in my role as Executive Artistic Director. I'm a member of New York State Council on the Arts, and as well as the Latinx Arts Consortium of New York, advocating for a more equitable culture sector, and then other advisory boards where I sit as well, New York Immigration Coalition, really helping to give input on policy at the city, state, and federal level.
Wow. And how big is this organization?
So we started volunteer-based 16 years ago. This is our 16th season. And right now we have full-time staff of 9, part-time staff of about 15 to 20. We're about, $1.6 million budget. So we're the largest performing art nonprofit in Upper Manhattan, above Harlem, which is really exciting. And, we're so grateful.
Absolutely. You have a great reputation. You put on just remarkable work for a long time now. You founded this organization. Tell me about that process.
I did. PTP was born as my thesis project. I was living as an actor. I was doing teaching artist work, teaching in schools in the Bronx. I was in 3 middle schools in the Bronx. And I knew I wanted to kind of find a bridge between the work that I was doing as an activist in the streets and in the classrooms with young people, and then my professional theater work as a theater director that started as an actor and then transitioned to directing. And I did a master's in peace studies and conflict transformation. At that point, I was already in New York City, uptown, from DR. And as part of my master's program, not only was I going to write a thesis, but I was expected to kind of create an action research project. And for me, that was People's Theater Project. How do we create a culture of peace through the arts? And I knew it was going to be with immigrants. I knew it was going to be in my community. And, mind you, this is 2007, 2008, where a while ago, where there was a lot less. It's exciting to see the renaissance, the uptown renaissance that's happened over the last decade or so. But back then there was very little when it came to theater. So we were very excited to be doing that work with members of our community, with professional artists in Spanish, in English, and it's been a thrill to see it grow since then.
Did you write your thesis knowing you wanted to actually bring it to life, or was it like a project that you just had to do and you had to submit something?
I did not know. I got into the program not knowing that was the requirement. When I worked on the thesis, at that point, I knew that was what had to do as a project. But like the projects varied in the cohort of students. I was the only one who did arts related stuff. So people did more research and policy work. But at that moment, I knew that it had to be something that I would create that way. And it started as like, what happens if we bring a production, make it accessible, so it was free, and bring it uptown. And then it continued to, and for immigrants. And then from there, I have a cousin, she's amazing, Ileana Emilia Garcia, who is a brilliant artist, but also a graphic designer, and created a logo for People's Theater Project. And then at the end of the thesis, I did great, graduated, and they're like, well, we have a logo. What if we just keep going? And that's really, how it started, and it was, and from there is what it is today.
Wow! And from there to full-time staff and part-time staff, and a new home for People's Theater Project.
Yes.
Can you talk about that part as well? Because I know you all are still in the process of fully moving in, right? But that new home is being completed.
Yes, and I forgot to mention that, so thank you for saying it. So a big part of my job now is we are doing this large, huge for me, right, capital project in New York City. We are building People's Theater Project's first home, the People's Theater, Centro Cultural Immigrante. It is scheduled to open in 2026. We are in full construction. We have a whole team, architects, construction managers, project managers, developers, owners rep, lawyers, like working very closely with the city, with the Economic Development Corporation, as well as DCLA on this. But this will be a cultural space, multidisciplinary, so not just theater, really will be a place for music and dance and theater dedicated to the immigrant community. And it'll be a home for immigrant artists, for local groups, to be creating, developing, and presenting work that speaks to all of the cultures of New York City. A home for many of them, not just for People's Theater Project and our own programming and producing. And it's, it's art gallery space as well. So all of that is happening. The core and shell, as we call it, kind of the white box, is almost fully done. And then in a couple of months, we start the fit out of the space to make it, shiny and brand new cultural center in New York City. It'll be the largest Latino managed theater in the state of New York, which is amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's through that process is where you and I really connected when I was working at the Economic Development Corporation. Since then, I've just been in awe of all of your work, right? Like you've mentioned basically like 6 different roles that you have right now within this one company, right? Like you're fundraising, you're managing a capital project, you're managing staff, you're producing plays, like you're actually like putting on productions, and like all of this it seems to be like just part of the role, right? But like talk to me about what this looks like when you walk in on a Monday. How do you figure out what the heck you're doing for the week?
So that's a great question. And it's so funny because I think in my position, I love that question. And it changes. That's the thing, right? Every week can look very different for me in my role. If it's a week that is heavy on government, community relations, government relations, I am out a lot. I'm out a lot having meetings, going down to City Hall, going to Albany, really meeting with elected officials, talking about the push that needs to happen around the arts sector, around PTP, the programming. So some weeks look like that. But Mondays are very important for me because I meet with most of our departments. I meet with our development team. I meet with our production team. I meet with our operations team on Mondays. On Tuesdays, I meet with education team and then the full staff. So it's really on those meetings that I get, okay, this is everything that's happening. Mino, these are the things on your docket for the week. Can you let me know what your status is on that? So I start building my weekly to-do list after I check in with our directors and our departments of like what's up to date, what needs my review. Because we have such an amazing team, and used to be that I was the education director or I was the development director. I was all these things. So now they let me know what needs my approval. If there's a grant that now needs my review, but I don't write the grant anymore, right? If there's a curriculum that's been written and needs my review, or there's a certain, so really Mondays are very important for me to like settle in, see what's in the docket, get updates. And then on Tuesdays, I also meet with our owners reps for the capital project. So I get a lot of updates there. But throughout the week, it really, this week, like a couple of weeks ago, I had to read 100 submissions, or it took me like 3 weeks for our playwrights unit, we got tons of submissions. Or our creative producers like, here's your deadline. Here you go. You have 50 plays to read. And I was like, oh my God, I need to create space for that. So finding buckets of time to do all of these different things and then create space for, on Tuesdays, I approve payroll. I approve all of our invoices. I approve everything that needs to be paid out with our finance team. So it's a mix of things. And of course, this capital project takes up not just Tuesdays. It's like every day, so many things come through, working with the city, working with developers, and that definitely takes precedence. So managing my time as much as I can.
Yeah. And even thinking about just that, right? Like all of the things that you're doing. And I'm thinking back to a few years ago, having the foresight to respond to an RFP, thinking about the future of PTP, right? So you were not only doing all the things that you're saying now, but thinking about a future permanent home and finding an opportunity within an RFP, a request for a proposal, figuring out the partners to work with. And can you talk to me about that process? Because I feel like that's something that as an executive director, not everyone is thinking about, potentially like finding a new home or a permanent home. And like, that's a lot of foresight that it takes.
Yeah. And I think even the process of applying was, almost 2 years, because by the time it came out, and there was also COVID in the mix, but even getting ready, like we met with the board first to be like this is why we think we can do this, or we should do this. And really thinking, as you said, of foresight, because where we were then, I knew was not where we needed to be in order to run it, but I knew there was going to be time. So even when we applied, our full-time staff was 4 or 5. We're now 9. Next year, we're hiring on 4 more. So because we need to now start building new positions that we don't need now, right? A technical director, an operations director, a rentals manager, right? Things that we don't need because we don't have a space now. We know we will need. So what we did was we did a 5-year plan. We really planned ahead. I started having conversation with funders that were not funding us yet, but telling the story, telling the impact of where we were going. And some really joined on and really invested in the capacity building of us as an organization. We also worked with some consultants to do like a business plan for once we open the space. So we have a very clear plan of what the costs will be. So we invested in that, in that time to do that work. So we really have a clear idea, which has been effective in the fundraising, to say, look, we know this is how much we're going to ramp up. We're going to be a $3 million organization. We're going to have these positions. A lot of that will be offset by the rentals that we will be doing. This is how we're going to sustain the company, the organization, the real estate. PTP will own this. We've been working very closely with our lawyers for our condo docs and making sure that we have a good deal. We won't have a mortgage, thank goodness, thanks to New York City being able to do this. And so it really has put us in a place of kind of slow and steady, although not that slow, because we really have almost doubled in size in the last 5 years. We have doubled in size in the last 5 years, and we'll double again in the next 2. But we know that at that point, we will be at a place of sustainability, right? Of now growing just, what we grow every year with inflations and things, but not really. My intention is not for us to continue to be this mammoth thing, but just to be what we need to be in order to serve the community, in order to do the work well. And, that's how we've been able to raise $33 million, which has been amazing. And we have the last 5 to go now from the private sector. We've raised 2 already from the private sector, and that'll be for our reserves. We know we need that in there. We know we need a bucket for space subsidies. So we are reaching out to partners and inviting them. And I think part of it is saying, hey, you want to be part of this. Go into part of saying that. So it's been very exciting for us to kind of do that work and trusting that I know that the work is important, the project is exciting, and the funding will come, the partners will come who want to be part of it. And I think I just knew back then, even though we were nowhere near able to do it, that it was the right, as you said, it was the right project for us, and it was the right way to do it. I've been wanting to open a theater in Washington Heights, uptown, for since I moved to the neighborhood 20 years ago. There isn't one. Why not? We're such creative, amazing, we're such a creative, vibrant community. We have so many stories to tell, right? When PTP started, we went out to the streets, spoke to over 100 people. When was the last time you saw a play? We asked them 2 questions. When was the last time you saw a play? Would you like to be in a play? Tell your story with People's Theater Project. For the first one, over 95% of people said, bueno, like the nativity play at church or never. For the second one, 98% of people said, claro. Tell me when, I'll be there. We're like, we have so much talent not only those that actively work on Broadway, we have so many people uptown who do work in the commercial theater scene, in the for-profit theater scene, non-profit theater scene, off Broadway or Broadway, but also just our abuelas and our tias and our deli workers and teachers and social workers. We also have stories. So I knew that I wanted theater, and over the years before this RFP came out, I mean, we saw churches, we saw basements. Like, it was always like trying, could this be it? But it wasn't, it was never quite the right project. And then when this came out, we're like, this is it. This makes it. It came with $15 million that helped us kind of catapult it. So being able to do that, New York City, and, the former council member put that forward, who's now Commissioner of Transportation, Commissioner Rodriguez, like the fact that was part of the neighborhood project, and I think was just made it so that a small nonprofit would have the opportunity to apply. And we did it in partnership with 21 nonprofits groups in the community who we met with and organized with, and they're like, you have to do this. So we leaned into our power, into our value of bravery, because we were being brave. And then after 2 years and a lot of interviews and more amendments and addendums, we got it. And it's been a journey. It's been 3 years since that day, and it's been amazing.
In the last 15 years of leading this organization, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of so many things, but I think I'm most proud of the people that make up People's Theater Project. And that's not only the young people that we've worked with, who many of them I have now hired as full-time staff. Our board chair was my first student. She was 10 years old when I met her. She is now 26, working at a Fortune 500 firm in Hudson Yards. And so I think the people that we have impacted, and also the people who work and make this work happen every day. I mean, I'm very lucky to work with passionate individuals, to have been able to create space to build careers for individuals within the organization, where this was their first kind of full-time job, 6 years ago, and have really grown into their own work and have expanded the work, are so committed to our community, to the immigrant community, to young people, those who work in education. So, I mean, definitely that's the thing I'm most proud of, both the participants and our team.
Of all the hats that you wear, what's your favorite part of your role? And then what's the most challenging part of the role?
I think the favorite is when I get to do the artistic work and the advocacy work, for sure. But the artistic work, getting to be in a rehearsal room, directing, I did it last year for the first time in quite a few years, and I'm doing it this year again, because there was so much joy that I got, even though it takes up a lot of time. And it means I'm working overtime, because I'm then still having to do all the admin work in the evenings or in the day, depending when the schedule is. It's worth it. Like, it fills me. So I realized last year, after not having done it for about 4 years, to create space within my year, right? A month where I can do that is important. So that definitely brings me so much joy. I remember once hearing Lin-Manuel Miranda and the amazing Miranda family, who we love, say that when he was playing Hamilton, just being an actor in those, whatever, a brilliant play, but like just being an artist in one form, there's such it's like not the easiest part of the day. I think, I forget how he said it, but for me, being in the rehearsal was like, not all the other million things I'm doing, but just working with actors right here, right now, to tell one story is so beautiful. So that's definitely the one that brings me the most joy, I would say. I can't just choose one. So the other one is being with our kids, being with the young people, doing advocacy. One of the things, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore, I still engage with our young people doing advocacy work. So I work with Leticia Cortez, who's our youth and family advocate, and we take our young people to Albany, and we take our young people to rallies, and we have them do lobby days and speak with elected officials. And I've built these relationships over 15 years with elected officials. And it brings me so much joy to be able to, say, this is Brianna, talk to Senator Gustavo Rivera, talk to Senator Jackson, talk to Assemblyman Manny de los Santos. And they're able to speak so beautifully and powerfully, because, theater does that. We're able to communicate. We can speak. We know how to do that. And I remember when we first did that many years ago, some of the elected officials would be like, wow, but they're amazing. How much have they done? It's like they've never done it, but they are actors. Our work is about them telling their own stories and how to speak about themselves. And there's, we always say theater and storytelling is the first thing we need to do to change hearts before we change policy, if you hear directly from those who are impacted. So, that brings me a lot of joy too. The most challenging, right? You asked me the most challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Time management. Radhy, there's nothing like I can't like. It's hard. That is the most challenging. How do I fit it all in? And then I'm also a mother, so a lot of my work happens outside of regular office hours, right? If there's a dinner, if there's a gala, if there's a coffee, if there are drinks, there are a lot of weekend things. So it's also finding the balance with life and work, right? So I've been able over the last few years to create spaces for that and know that if I work late, I can come in later the next day. And I take Friday afternoons with my kids, and I limit how many evening events a week I do. There are some busier times of the year, but I think the balance, and I think any other executive director will tell you that too. Time management and balance is the most challenging that I struggle with for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I think it's interesting because I think you've been able to find this interesting way to channel your creativity and channel all of the things that fuel you about theater through this organization. So in a way that you're not necessarily in every play and you're not necessarily in every production, but you are able to see them come to life and provide the resources that they need to come to life and the support and the staffing and the everything. And I'm in awe, right? Because what you're doing is you're really like broadening your impact in ways that it's not just about the things that or the plays that you're part of, but like how do you bring other people's visions to life, and other people's creativity to life and other people's talents to life. I just think that's such a unique way to like channel this, right? Because it's not inherent that you're an artist and now going to run a nonprofit, right? Like those are not necessarily the same transferable skills, but you've been able to do it like really gracefully.
Thank you. And it's true. I mean, it definitely like in the years as we've continued to like build and grow, like, okay, literary manager, playwright, what do you want to do? And how do we make that happen? Definitely has been a thing, like a producer, right? I'm a theater producer, which I'm not in the room all the time. I'm not, we have other, but like, I know that we are creating a space for art to flourish. And that is, and we've, like every time an artist comes to me, people who know of me or know what people feel like PTP means so much. I know it's a home for me as a Latino artist, as a Dominican artist, right? As an immigrant, right? We have immigrants from all over, not just, we started Claro Pretty Latino uptown and will always be core Dominican and Latinos, but have broadened, when 8 years ago we're like, we are immigrant serving. We're really building that into the mission. And we have artists from Uganda and Korea and China, our creative producers from China, development director Japanese, and El Salvador. And, so it's really beautiful to see that diversity. And like someone from Uganda would be like, Mino, PTP existence means so much to me, as an artist. And that means a lot to me to know that we are creating a space, as you said, where it's like so much bigger than I could have done just maybe in that, if I would have stayed as just an individual artist. So I'm very grateful for that.
I'm very big on people can do well and do good at the same time. As an executive director of nonprofit, which you founded, right? Can people make a decent living doing this type of work? Or are they bound to be super poor because it's nonprofit and that's just the way that it is?
We have to keep championing and pushing the sector 100%. And we can't do this alone. So one of the things that I'll say is, we have actively been, as a nonprofit and together with our board and our leadership team, pushing salaries, continuing to grow that. And I think there is a movement to do that. The nonprofit industrial complex is a thing that's, is a term and is real, right? There's this expectation that because you're doing good, you shouldn't be able to live good. And that is a fallacy. We all work really hard. Just because we're passionate about it does not mean. So I'm very proud of the work we've done to really do our wages and increase our wages and where we are now. And I would say we don't have to buy into that. I think the sector will push you to say it's just nonprofit, but we need to continue to push it. And our team has been pushing us, and I am grateful for that because I believe in that. And then we've been pushing our board, and other nonprofits are continuing to do that. And I think if we all come to, I'm an organizer, so if we advocate together, we can elevate together. Because the work, we are a company, we don't have an owner, right? So that should even be a thing that I think for other people who are looking to start nonprofits, work in nonprofits, especially for founders or executive directors. It's like, if I would have started a for-profit, I would get stuff at the end of this. I get nothing. I get a salary. That's it, right? And so that's why it's so important to make sure that these salaries are equitable and our compensation packages and our benefits are really wonderful. And we give them tons of PTO time, right? Like Europe standards, right? Weeks and weeks and weeks, right? Because we know that it's a work-life balance, and we believe we all deserve it. So even if at the beginning wages are not where they were, where they should have been, where they have to be, then there's other ways we can complement, right? So our packages of what we do, we do 6 weeks, right, of vacation. We do, for all the other things that are more standard, but really creating space for employees to have that balance is a way to do it. So I think you can. I think the world needs nonprofits. Government can't do it alone. For-profit companies, you can't do it alone. They do good work too. But I think there is such an important place, especially in New York City, for nonprofit organizations to be pushing forward, equitable living and justice for our communities. And so we need the sector to come on up to raise those salaries so that we can all continue to do this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, like you started this without a salary, right? And now
Yeah,
you've been
yeah.
able to
I
grow
had
it.
3 other jobs. Yeah, at the beginning, but I think that's the thing for any startup, right? You start and you like figure it out, but if you're committed to your mission, you have your clear vision of where you're going. You have the right team, right? A co-founder with my partner who's still in the organization, managing director, and like having that core group, whoever that is so important as you're building something up.
Is this what you always wanted to do for a living? Like I know when you were speaking earlier, it sounded like direct acting or production of plays was more of your driver, but like when did that start for you?
I feel like my mom would say, like, of course, this is what you were going to do. Like I definitely put up a theater camp for my cousins when I was 10 and organized curriculum and did all the things and we did shows. So at one point, I do think that this was my purpose and what I was always going to do. And my mom has a company in DR and like I think what I saw, she worked together with my dad and is a designer. So it's art in the art space. But there was a moment in my early 20s where I was like, I want to act and I want to direct. But I'm glad that I did that because I learned so much in that space, right? But I do think that I never thought like I was going to be executive artistic director, like I didn't know it was going to be what it is today or that PTP exactly would be this. But I think creating a space where artists can work, where young people can thrive and be centered, where advocacy, where working collaboratively and kind of running things, creating things, I do kind of feel like that's where I was meant to be. And now at 43, I can say, yes, this was it. In hindsight, I was like, I knew that when I was 7, probably.
Wow.
I did a
Yeah.
program in college. I built a whole program in college too. So it's like, I think it was like part of me to be like, okay, this is something that needs work, that needs fixing or needs happening. Let's build something, work together, go.
And you were born and raised in the Dominican Republic?
Born and raised in DR in Santo Domingo. I came here because I got a scholarship and went to college.
And even at that age, you knew like I'm gonna go into theater and study. Was it theater that you actually studied, or what was your
I
actual major?
did. I did. So I was actually studying in college there to be education and philosophy. I was doing in DR. And then at that point, I did not know I was going to do theater at all because it wasn't something I grew up doing some theater, but like in DR back then in the 80s and 90s, there was not a big theater scene. That was not a thing that you're like, I'm going to be an actor. That's not a thing. Now it's changing. And there's definitely Bellas Artes has an amazing theater school. But back then in 1998, it was like, wasn't a career, right? So I was going to be a teacher. And then there was the first International Theater Festival in DR in 1998 and 1999. And it changed my life. And there were companies from Chile, from Spain, from Cuba, from Colombia, from Mexico. And I was like, wait, you all live and tour the world doing theater? Like, what is this? This is a thing? I never met that or seen that. So at that point, I dropped out of college. I was still working during the day as as a teacher, not theater, as a teacher, first grade teacher assistant. I was doing college, which is very common there in the evenings. But I instead started doing theater and street theater while I applied for schools. So I applied and this is before online applications. There was no such thing. The internet existed. I'm not that old. but it was not online application. It was all like printing out packets and da 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 da. And at the end, I didn't think I was going to come to the US. I really didn't. But it ended up being where I was able to get the most support financially. And it was closer than South America. And my parents were freaking out for me to go too far. So it ended up being, there are daily flights to New York from DR, that New York was the place where I ended up. And it was, life works in ways that you sometimes don't know. I never thought I would come to the US, and it's definitely is the home where I should have been and where I was able to build, People's Theater Project. So very grateful.
Wow. And this is, just the exposure of attending a festival and like how that can change your entire trajectory. Like, I love that.
It was literally, I never thought theater was a career. And then suddenly it was like, boom, study theater and all that.
And now you're providing that exposure to others.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Are there any forms of media that could be books, podcasts, anything that you've consumed or read, or anything that has shaped you personally or professionally?
I'm sorry that I didn't think of this. It's so funny because as you say this, one of the things that I've been devouring many books recently, and it has been like the nourishing and many plays, but it hasn't really been around my career, because part of it is like letting go of that, like creating space to just nurture my art has been very good for me, creating that balance. So there's a couple of authors that I love. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is one of them, Esmeralda Santiago, and there's another author there. Of course, it's terrible that I'm not remembering since I've read 4 of her books this year. First name Rachel. I will get back to you so you can put it when this podcast is posted. But it's an author who writes about love, all kinds of love between friends and sisters. I recently lost my father, and there was love between an ancestor and self, and it's just been very nourishing to just see all the different spaces where love can exist and nurture and relationship building. And I think in a way, kind of, this work is about relationship building. No nonprofit, no individual, no artist can exist without building relationships. And the relationships that I have today with, elected officials started when they were interns 15 years ago, or staffers. So it's been, in a way, not directly, I'm not reading about careers, but I'm reading about the importance of relationships and love and centering love and joy. And Rebecca Searle, that's her name, Rebecca Searle. And I've read 4 of her books this year, and it's just been like, and I cry and I laugh. And that kind of gives me that, okay, let's go and cry and laugh together about the world, about the work, So those 3 authors. And I love fiction. I mean, I'm an artist. What can I say?
That's great. Are there any plays that you've watched that you think folks should go check out?
Oh, I've seen so many shows recently. I love theater. People should definitely go see live theater. I think it's closing, but just last week I saw Stereophonic on Broadway, and it's still on. I don't know when it closes, but it was so good. It was such a wonderful play. It started in the off-Broadway scene, and you get a glimpse into a recording studio, like a band making music in the 70s, and it really feels like a glimpse into something that we wouldn't, as regular people who are not a band from the 70s. And I love Fleetwood Mac, and that was part of the inspiration, but it was so well done. The acting was so beautiful. And then you get to see the bits and pieces of them recording. And the actors who are actors, some of them used to be musicians. I mean, some of them kind of played an instrument. Most of them didn't, had to learn how to play an instrument. All they know is how to play those songs, but they actually recorded an album. So like in the play, you're not going to hear the whole songs. You're going to see the bits of how you build music and the disasters that come. And it was just so cool. It was like, I didn't even know you layer things. You just do vocals and then you do but then actually after you can download and hear the whole album. I was like, oh my God, that was the moment in that scene when she was having a mental breakdown, or that was that. So it's like so beautiful that the play even continues beyond. And the piece is also about are you ready to give up on your career? And this is too hard, right? That's what it deals about. So I loved it, highly recommend it. And that's the one that's front and center for me now. But anything at Pregones, definitely come see People's Theater Project. We have a reading coming up, Domino Effect, at New York Theater Workshop, and then at Art New York next spring. But yeah, check out what Off-Broadway is doing. Check out what your local community groups are doing. That's where the real work, is happening. National Black Theater, I'm a big fan of their work in Harlem. So, yeah.
How can people work with, participate in, support, partner, all the things with People Theaters Project?
Yeah, so there's a few ways to do that. We have so many kind of entry points of collaboration. We are in a place of growth and expansion. We want to meet new people. We want to meet new companies. We want to have people join our team. So the first way is go to our website and sign up for our mailing list. Get to know what we're doing. Come see a show. A lot of our work is free because that's the point, right? That initial thesis of making theater accessible still holds true, right? So we have a free stage reading of a brand new work that will be a world premiere off-Broadway production in the spring. That's happening in a couple of weeks. Tickets just went out. They're free. We have a festival of new works uptown happening in December. Come to that. We have a community fundraiser that is a big party uptown that's happening in November. Come to that, get a drink and support a nonprofit. So I think attending, coming to be an audience member, and also if you want to volunteer, we are always looking for ushers or people to come and volunteer with our young people as well. We have our Palante workshop. So if you're someone who is a professional in the field and you're a person of color, you're a Latino, we want our young people to hear you talk, to tell them about all the different career paths. We do that in October. Tell them about financial whatever it is. We have so many different pockets, so we can connect you to our education team there. And of course, if you want to donate, if you want to support our scholarships, all of our programs are free to students. We don't charge tuition. We fundraise for it so that they don't have to pay. So we're definitely looking for partners, both for our capital project. This is, someone who works at a company and they want their name somewhere, contact me. Mino at People's Theater Project, and we'll make that happen. So yeah, there's so many different ways to get involved, both as an audience, as an artist, if you want to act with us, and the best way is go to our website, find us, follow us on social, People's Theater Project on Instagram and Facebook, and we will reach out and find a way. It's all about collaboration. I love it. I rarely say no, which my team doesn't love. Because then I create more work, but it's really about building and creating spaces, and that can continue forever and in so many ways.
Is there anything we haven't discussed today that the world should know about Mino?
I don't think so. I think we did pretty good.
I think so. I think we covered a lot, and definitely about the genesis and the growth of People's Theaters Project, and even what sparked the idea to get to this point. So, I appreciate you taking the time to come on today and to speak with us.
Thank you so much. This was great, and I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and believe on the mission we're on, please like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're using, and share this podcast with your friends and your networks. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Cheat Code, and tell us people or careers you would like to see highlighted. See you next week with some more cheat codes. Peace.